This is Shannon Torrance, and you're listening to or watching Magic is Real. Today, my guest is Joanne Eisen. Joanne is an evidential medium, and she's also the host of a YouTube show called Reach the Unlimited. Joanne and I talk about getting into mediumship later in life. We also talk about the mechanics of mediumship, how to enhance and improve our abilities. Joanne also provides some helpful tips and tricks to help newer mediums get out of their head and set aside some of the self-doubt that often blocks us from becoming a clear channel. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more like it, please like, rate, subscribe, share. You know what to do. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you. Now please enjoy my interview with Joanne Eisen.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Magic is Real, and you're either watching it on YouTube or listening in podcast format. I'm your host, Shannon Torrance, and today I have with me my friend Joanne Eisen. Joanne is an evidential medium, and she is the host of the vlogcast. I never know what to call these things. She calls it a vlog, and it is called Reach the Unlimited. I was honored to have been invited to be a guest on her show last week. And I would just like to first welcome you, Joanne, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to share all about mediumship and spirituality. So, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So, first of all, can you tell us what Reach the Unlimited, what its focus is, and what led you to wanting to create this show in the first place?
Well, I think that came for, and very good question. Thank you for asking that. It really came from my living a life that wasn't being fulfilled and needing to do more and realizing that I had a lot of fears that I was not facing. And so one day I woke up and thought, what would be the scariest thing I could do? And speaking to people, even though I love to talk, was one of my biggest fears. And so I called a friend of mine and said, hey, let's do this live Facebook. And that's how it all started. It just kept on going from there. And I really love doing it. I named it Reach the Unlimited because a lot of us tend to get stuck and we don't think that we can do more than what we actually can. And I wanted to show people different ways of thinking and different ways of seeing things in hopes to inspire people to do more than what they're actually doing or feel like they can do. And I've been able to interview so many wonderful, wonderful people from all over the world and share their life and their experiences. And like you do, I love to go and hear about their life and what brought them to where they're at and hopefully be able to encourage other people to see that they can do more. So that's how it was born. And where I keep hoping for it to go. I keep finding new people and new experiences. And like you, I'm sure I don't always agree with everybody that's come on my show, but I actually love being able to think about things that I don't maybe agree with and reevaluate myself. Is this really working for me, or could I think about something differently? So that's why I started Reach the Unlimited.
That's a great answer, and I think you really have achieved that with what you're doing. Uh, I also I love the idea that, especially because we're going to talk about this, about how you don't even realize what you can achieve.
Mhm.
And I think this will sort of lead me to my main question about how you got into mediumship. But for years, I was really into medium shows and read all the books and watched all the mediums work. And I thought, wow, what a great job that would be. But I thought you had to be born with this gift, that it was just something you were gifted and these certain lucky people got to do it. And I've talked about this on your show and in other episodes of mine that I am a voice actor, but for a couple of years I suffered a voice disorder. And people kept saying to me, what would you want to be other than a voice actor? And I said, I'd want to be a medium, but dead people aren't talking to me. I literally told myself this story that, well, I would do that, but I can't do that.
Mhm.
And I think it's really interesting that this is what we're going to talk about a lot, is that don't put limits or tell yourself stories about what you're capable of and what you're not, because you'll find often that if if you are drawn to do something, there is a reason that you're drawn to do that thing. And when we put limitations, it's really our own limitations that we're putting on ourselves. So, that being said, I would love to know, just tell us about you. Who who is Joanne Eisen, and what's your background, your upbringing? What was your life like? And what led you to mediumship later in life?
Well, you said so many things in there that are so important in points, right? So limitations to me was a big thing, and being limited in what I could do or think I could do, are also my beliefs were really a big stumbling block for me. So when you were saying how you would watch these shows on mediums and really was intrigued by those kinds of shows, I was raised in a very strong Catholic background, and when I wanted to deviate from that before I was 18, my mom was, no way, you're not doing that. And so I went into, after I had left the home, into a more strict religious belief that was almost like a Jewish kind of Orthodox Jewish kind of religion, and which was important for me to go through that process. But as you were embracing speaking to the deceased, I was in a closet hiding from them. I was afraid of them. I was afraid of them. And I was afraid of what would happen if I communicated with them. So I had definitely a long road of working on that. I didn't start my journey of in my awakening of even thinking about being a medium. I was already having trouble going to tarot readers or getting a psychic reading from somebody. But I just kept on challenging myself in my beliefs. And when I would hit a roadblock or whatever stumbling block I would hit about my belief in something, then I would challenge it, and I would really do more studying about it, or what do I really feel about it, or where did that belief come from. And so that was my process. It actually started, I started my journey in doing physical things. I wanted to be a naturopath, so I ended up getting certified in a lot of different kind of certifications when it came to nutrition. And I was doing blood work and iridology and aromatherapy and herbology. There was so many things in the physical world that I was doing. But when I first started my nutritional program, I knew that there was something more. I mean, I could feel in my DNA or something that this was only a beginning. And so as I would go through all of my training, I always was looking for something else, thinking I didn't quite get there. There's still something more, which is a two-pronged thing. We always doubt ourselves. We always feel like we're not enough. We need to learn more. We're not capable yet, or we're not qualified yet to be able to teach something. And the other side of it was, I did know within me that I hadn't gotten to where I needed to go yet. So through that journey, I was also going through some pretty difficult times in my life, and I needed to make some changes in my marriage. I needed to make changes in my family. And so in doing that, I started running. And in my running, I would be running 10 miles a day. And during that time period, I didn't realize that I actually had started a meditation practice. And so in that meditation practice is when I started connecting to spirit and realizing I'm connecting back to myself. And that was really kind of a roundabout way to get to where I am now. But through that process, I began to question more and more of my religious beliefs and whether they were true. And I think I told you on my podcast where I was with a friend and I went to Sedona, and she pulled into this, which going to Sedona was already a big thing for me. So she pulled into this reading place. And I was like, I can't go in there. And I really seriously thought, I can't go in there. And so she was like, well, let's just go look. And she kind of like was putting breadcrumbs, right, for me to go into this place. And when I went in, she said, I've been here before and I want to get a reading. She said, look at the people and see if you can find someone who you feel comfortable getting a reading from. Well, I ended up picking this guy who rocked my world. He literally rocked my world. He told me basically the end and then work backwards, which blew my mind. And so when I came home from that, I really had to think about what he had told me and all that he told me, which was the truth. And in my core, I knew it was the truth, but I still hadn't made some of the bigger changes that I needed to make. So I think by that communication that I had with him, then that helped me to kind of like be more real about unpacking my beliefs that I knew weren't mine, but they were taught to me as a child. And so that was really the beginning of me actually getting to where I am. And being a medium was not anything that I ever wanted to do or anything that I would even have thought about doing. Not necessarily because at this point it was a belief thing. It was more about it's not me. I wasn't born to be a medium. I wasn't made to do this. Other people do this. And like I said, literally, I had a friend who would like, work with people and get rid of dark energies or whatever. And it was a running joke for us that she would go do that. And I literally would go hide in the closet and not be around that. So I was really terrified of even um, communicating with the deceased. I was just not something I was going to do. But, I think that as we travel our path and we're doing our work, we always have a direction or almost like a fate of where we're going. And because not everybody can be a medium, and I know we're going to talk more about this, but I feel like everybody can be a medium, but not everybody was put on this planet to be a medium, because we're here for all different kinds of reasons from my belief system. And so we're going to pick things that are different. We're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or I started over 30 years ago, running a plumbing business. And I thought that was wonderful. And now I can't wait to get out of that. So I feel like, we all have a path, but when we're following what our destiny is, we're going to get to where we're going. And I was at an event one year, and I was watching, and I had been to this event a couple times, and I had been watching this person who would do a platform demonstration. That's when you're on the stage and you're reading for a group of people, if you don't know what a platform is. And I was basically walking away from the stage. And as I walked away, I felt this little tap on the shoulder, and it really was my time to say, maybe this is something that I want to do. Maybe this is something that I would resonate with and that I would really be able to embrace. And I'm really glad that I listened to that tap, because I think that mediumship is where I was trying to go when I started doing my physical journey. And I knew something was missing, because I always believe that it's mind, body, and spirit. And if you leave one of those out, then you're not going to be balanced. And so you can do everything you want to have a healthy body, but if you're not keeping balance within your mind and connecting to the spirit, then you're never going to feel fulfilled. And so when I started doing mediumship, which we can talk about was a wild road, and it's a journey to do that, I ended up really feeling like I had now gotten to where I really needed to be. And now I put all of that together, because I still have a very strong nutritional background in physical activities. And I also am very much a teacher and a mentor. So I put everything together and try to help people with the whole picture, because you can't just take one section and work on that, because you're going to be out of balance in all sections. So that's been my journey. That's my long story to my journey to where I'm at today.
That's really interesting and very well told. Uh, at this time, when you got that tap,
Mm-hmm.
were you aware that you could learn to be a medium?
It's funny, because I think we've come from almost a similar background, where I didn't have a lot of history about mediumship, right? It wasn't something I grew up with or that I studied about or anybody told me about. So I had no idea there's this whole history to and culture to being a medium. And a lot of the older mediums, or the people that have been taught in the older school of mediumship, would say, no, you have to come from a family lineage. There has to be something in your line that brings you to be a medium. I'm here to say it's not true, because I can tell you for sure, I don't have a line of mediums in my family, for sure. In fact, my family has, on a overall picture, has disowned me, because I'm going against the religion that we grew up in. They don't believe in what I'm doing, and they don't trust what I'm doing. They all know I've told them what I'm doing, but they don't agree with it. So I I've learned that that's a fallacy and that anybody can do it if it's something you really want to do. Something that you and I talked about is it's not an easy journey, because what you're doing is you're really looking into the soul of who you are. And you have to face those demons within you to be able to be a really ethical and powerful, that's not what I'm thinking of, to be a really ethical and uh, what word am I looking for? Kind medium.
Hmm. I think that's true because it's you can, even if you are a, let's just say you even are naturally a medium, you can pick up messages, but you also, the job of being a medium isn't just relaying, telling people what you
Mhm.
see, hear, know. It's also about being able to have ethics, be sensitive, not blurt out, "Oh, yeah, okay, someone was murdered. Yeah, that was," you gotta be very, you have to be,
Exactly.
these things are, there's
Mhm,
trauma involved. Someone
mhm,
may have lost a child.
mhm.
It's almost like you have to be also a grief counselor without having a degree.
Do.
It's, you have to be very sensitive and delicate about how you deliver the messages in a way that is sensitive and gentle. And also, your sitter often might begin to cry.
Yes.
And you need to be able to hold space for them while they're having these feelings, and watch how they're reacting and say, "Hey, do you need a minute? Are you
Yes.
okay? Do you want
Mhm,
me to continue? Do you want me to say this?" But it's also on the TV shows, they walk up to people in grocery stores and say, now we know that mediumship ethics is we don't do that to people. We don't ambush them. These
mhm,
people have signed waivers. These people are on reality shows, and people like the Long Island medium, people know who she is.
mhm.
It's for the show, and I know some of these mediums, and they don't do that in their real lives. And they say, "Look, that's for the cameras, and we don't actually do that unless a spirit is really saying, 'This is so important. Can you please
Mhm,
approach
mhm.
my mom and trust that that person is ready to hear it,' and be very gentle." And also ethics in terms of, this is something, we get paid to do, even if you and I aren't, aren't choosing to do that yet, or whatever stage we're at. This is somebody giving you their trust, their money, and also, and just being ethical in general and not talking crap about other mediums or all
Oh,
that stuff. It's like,
big.
it's big. It's just, yeah. I mean, I know. I think I listened to. I'm pretty sure it was one of your shows that
Yeah.
hit on that. And just even being a good person, because we can't be a clear channel for spirit if
Mhm,
we're not right with ourselves and we're not living in our own integrity. So it is a big responsibility, which is why personally I don't feel ready to charge for my services, just because it's such a big responsibility. I know I will eventually, but I want to be fully prepared and trained so that I can give my best every time without any self-doubt creeping in, and make them feel safe with me. So you're absolutely right about that. So when you got that tap and you thought,
mhm,
"I had never had this thought." I mean, you even risked your relationships.
mhm. I did. Mhm,
And I think I am too, in a sense. I mean,
mhm,
I know some people have said, you shouldn't really tell anyone. And
mhm,
so far I've gotten nothing but support. But yeah, I'm sure there might be clients or there might be friends that are like, "Oh, that's weird."
mhm,
Honestly, I don't care at this point in my life, so I'm
mhm.
putting it out there. I really honestly, because I, like you, know this is my purpose and my mission and what I love to do more than anything. It means more to me than anything. So when you got that tap on the shoulder, what was your next step in pursuing mediumship?
Wow, that's a good question. For me, when I know something is right, I jump in. And I don't remember who I contacted first, but I ended up getting involved with a couple people that were doing like weekly things. And so I would jump into circles without any training, which is really scary when I look back at it, but no training yet. I just was like, this is really interesting to me, and I really want to know whether this works for me. And so I started doing circles, which was good and bad at the same time. And the great thing about it is they were really good people, and it was a safe place to be. But after that, I knew that this was something that was really important to me to keep learning about, because like you, I'm very conscientious, especially through all of my training when it came to health and nutrition. I was always very conscientious about, people's safety and doing things in a way that wasn't going to endanger them or put them in a high risk situation or a crisis of any sort. And so you're completely correct. When you're doing mediumship, you're dealing a lot of times with very sensitive subjects. And it's such a beautiful and healing experience if you're with somebody who really knows how to do it well and is not, making things up or forcing things to happen. Because in mediumship, it's about surrendering. When we're doing mediumship, we're surrendering to your loved one that comes through to bring you the message. But ego often, and I see it so often, can get in the way. And then people are putting their own agenda into the reading. And that's where you can really get into subjects or areas that are really sensitive to people and not going to be healing. So you really do have to know what you're doing and be trained to know what would be the right way to do mediumship and the wrong way. And you're right, there is very much a lot of criticism in this world of mediumship and in the psychic even arena, because there's such a vast difference, especially now, especially with COVID. But now where we have all this online stuff, you've got these people that feel like they're mediums and they don't really get that training where you can help somebody through that process. Because I've had, and I know you've had, very sensitive subjects that come through in a reading, and that's not something that you just plow through. You have to be, all those things that you mentioned, you have to always be monitoring how your sitter is doing and how they're taking that information. So what I did is I started training with people, and I've had many different teachers that I've worked with. And I'm a big proponent of, don't just stick with one teacher, because we as people, we learn in different ways and through different kinds of mediums. Like, that was a funny pun, but whether it be seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, um, acting it out, there's different ways that we learn. And so from different people, you're going to hear things or feel things or see things in a different way. So I've learned from the many different teachers that I've had. When I was missing something from one teacher, then I would be able to have a better understanding or gain better understanding from another. And so it just helped to deepen and deepen and deepen my connection with spirit and my understanding on how to give a message where it's the most beneficial for that person. So there's a lot to being a medium than just, I went and took a 6-week class and now I'm ready to put a, welcome sign over my door and take people's money. There's so much more to being a medium. And I'm like you, I'm very conscientious about what's being said and make sure that I'm giving what really is in the best and highest good of the person that's sitting in front of me.
Right. I always do like a little prayer kind of thing before, and I know you do too. And it's not so much a prayer as just I ask to be a clear channel and for all of
Mhm.
the messages to be in my
Yeah.
highest and best
Mhm.
good, my sitter's highest and best good, and most importantly, the highest and best of the spirit world, God. And it just sort of setting that intention that that I trust and surrender. And I like that you said surrender because you talk about ego getting in the way. And I think
Mhm.
ego can be play out in different ways. It can be, I need to be right. So
Yes.
even if they say no, that doesn't resonate, I'm going to be like, oh no, it resonates. It's right. It's sort of
Go check it out.
yeah. And on one hand,
Uh-huh.
it's important to be confident and say,
Mhm.
just write it down. And I've learned this to not doubt I tend to go, oh, that's wrong. Well, okay, I guess I was wrong, or I guess I'm getting in my head, or I guess, and half the time they come back and say, I found out that actually did mean something.
Mhm.
And ego can also mean the thing that I struggle the most with since I've been doing this maybe almost a year now
Mhm.
is I have a good reading and I immediately go into, did I really get that? Was I lucky?
Mhm.
Were they making it fit?
Mhm.
And then I have to do another one to prove to myself that I didn't make it up. And okay, it happened again.
Mhm.
And every time before I go in a reading, I start to get nervous. Like
Yeah.
I have to show up on stage and I don't know my lines and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I really working on saying, Spirit,
Mhm.
just let me just totally relax and just be a channel. I'm just going to let you do the work. I
Hmm.
just have to open my mouth and deliver it. And it goes against our human
It
tendency
does.
to want to be
Hmm.
perfect and to want to think it all through and have it all make sense. And it's
Yeah.
very difficult for me, anyway, who's a very logical,
Uh,
analytical
uh,
person,
uh,
to go, oh, no, I trust it. I'm not worried. It's going to come out. It's just whatever needs to be said is going to be said. I'm just going to sit here and chill. It's like for me to let go of control in that way is like, I'm still working
I
on it.
hear you.
And the
I hear
more we
you.
let go, the more the information comes, but there's something that just I'm still holding on.
Well, think about it. It's like we're having a conversation with the unseen, the
Yeah.
unfelt, the unheard. I mean, it's how do you wrap your head around that? In the beginning, it's like it cannot be real. It cannot happen. And I know there's a lot of people that don't believe that it's true.
Yeah.
But when you start developing your other senses, right? Not just your knowing your brain, the way your brain thinks, but you're developing your inner knowing and your feeling, because you can feel spirit when spirit comes to you, or your third eye that you can see something through, or even your hearing. They all work together. So when we work with them together, and we're always going to doubt, we're always going to question, is that real or did that really happen? But I feel like it's the more that we do it, the more that we actually see how it works, and the more confident we come. It really is about, like, I used to get really nervous too, and sometimes I still will. But one thing I feel like some of the nervous though is the nervousness that I have is that energy of spirit already
Mhm.
building up in me before I'm doing a reading. But when I'm doing the reading, when I'm going to do the reading, that's when I'm getting nervous. When I just, and that's what I started doing, is just saying, all I'd have to do is be there. You get to do the rest. I get to go take a nap or put my brain somewhere else, but I'm not the one that's going to be in charge of that. And that's when you know that you're getting the real nuggets, the real story of the spirit that's coming through. But there's so many. I mean, I think it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of work to get to that point where you just, because what you said is, I assume I don't understand it, right? That's a lot of problems that mediums have. Is if I tell you that you would understand your mother having a scarf and she would put it around her hair, if I just said you would understand your mother and a scarf in her hair, you would be able to go, oh, yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
But I would come to, well, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to say that she would go to her drawer, she would get this scarf, and she would brush her hair, and then she would put the scarf in her. So I'm embellishing what spirit is giving me as the message. And that's a part of our learning, is to just trust, because we're learning as we're doing mediumship, not only surrender, but we're learning to trust and allow. And so when we're embellishing something, then we, like you said, we're taking control of it. Where if we just allow it to flow through us and just say or express what it is that we're seeing, actually feeling, or actually hearing, then that it's just amazing to experience that. It just really makes you in awe of how intelligent and how loving the spiritual world is, and how when you're doing that, we really are proving that we do never die. We are here. This is the illusion that we're in right now, in these physical bodies that we've chosen to come and live this life in. But really, our soul that's in heaven, or wherever you want to put it, whatever makes sense to you, I believe we're always with our loved ones, and our soul is always with us as well. But that's the beauty, is being able to connect to your soul, and to be able to have your soul connect to the loved ones that you have on the other side, that are actually with you 24/7. You can call on them, or you can have them come and visit you, or talk with them, or have them help you through something. Anytime, any of your loved ones, they're always there. They're never too busy, they're never doing something else. They're here to help us, because this is our playground of learning, and they know that it's difficult to be in this environment, the density of our earth and the experiences that we go through.
That is so beautifully said. I want to give an example of that, but then I have questions for you um, in regards to when it first started to sort of where you're like, I'm doing this. And just to give an example of what you just said, I did a reading last week, and I just want to share this because I think it's amazing how spirit shows this thing that to you seems so nothing, but it makes perfect sense to the other person.
Hmm.
And I've learned to just not say what it is. So I said, I'm seeing a carport, just like outside an apartment complex, and I see a car inside of it. So I see this and I'm like, a car inside a carport. What does that mean? So I don't just take that. I ask spirit, okay, I don't know what that means. Show me something more specific. Help me zoom in. And I literally see a zoom in
Hmm.
and I see I'm drawn to the license plate. Now, in my mind, I'm like, what does the license plate say? Well, I don't see that. So I realized, so I said to my sitter, okay, I'm being drawn to a license plate. So to me, this feels like there's something about a personalized license plate that's significant here.
Hmm.
He says, yes, the friend you're talking with, he bought a truck. It had a personalized license plate on it. It was something funny. His friends made fun of him. He's like, I didn't choose the personalized license plate. The truck just came with it. And in the yearbook, people were calling him that name. Like it was like I don't know if it was his official nickname, but people kept sort of razzing him about this personalized license plate. All I saw was a carport, a
Hmm.
car, and a license plate. And I had to put that together to say it, something about personalized license plate. I can't tell you what it says. He had to fill in the blanks. And it's that tendency for us to want to figure it all out that we have to let go of and just trust that I'm seeing this for a reason. He just wants me to tell that to my sitter. That's all I have to do. And it's um, Charlie Kelly is a medium, and he always says in his videos online, just you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. This is easy.
Hmm.
It's easy. Just let it be easy. So when you first started sitting in circles, which for anyone who doesn't know is before COVID times, you would actually go to someone's house or to someone's
Hmm.
event space and sit with a bunch of mediums and you practice meditating and mediumship with one another. Does that kind of describe, how do you describe it?
Yeah, well, you get together, and what you're doing is you're sitting in the power, which
Right.
is you sitting with your higher self and connecting. And then from that, you start connecting with the spiritual world. So it definitely is because, like I said before, and I know you've said this as well, the first line of doing mediumship is to do your inner work. It's to understand who you are, why you do things, why you react certain ways. Because if you don't have a good idea about who you are, then exactly what you were just talking about will happen, where you're going to misinterpret things because they're working through your Rolodex. They're working through your personality to get you to understand what their story is. I mean, some people, I'm sure you've talked about this, believe that your actual loved one stands right in front of us. But when we pass from this body and we go to the spiritual world, we're energy. We're just energy at that point. Now, there's ways that they show us what they look like through our filters and what makes sense to us, and that's how a medium works. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think that when we're doing this reading that we're actually seeing physically that person there in a ghost form, and we're not. But they're so intelligent, they know how to show us what it's like. Or like, the carport, they know how to show you a carport because they know what a carport is going to mean to you, right? I may have a completely different idea of what a carport would mean to me. And that's how we do our readings, is through that. So yes, it's very important that we do our inner work. And when we're sitting in a circle, the importance of sitting in a circle too is that when you have, it's like the Bible says, when two or more are gathered. This is the same kind of idea. When you have a circle of people, and usually the circle will meet on a regular basis at the same time, and it's showing that devotion to spirit, to the spiritual world. And you're all building this power together. By all of you sitting together, this power is building together, and it creates a stronger medium as you're doing that.
I can't wait until it's safe to do this because I've only been able to do Zoom circles
Mhm.
and they're great, but that energy for me isn't as present as I think it would be in person to actually sit in the room with a bunch of people and have that connection. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. And to your point about they show our reference, I remember doing a reading where I was picturing a guy that to me had like he was kind of like a more burly guy with a beard and shaggy hair, and he was kind of like a cool musician drinking beer, and everything I described him, I saw him in my mind. And she
Mhm.
said, "Yes, yes, yes, you're describing my brother perfectly." Well, then
Mhm.
sometimes I'll say, "Can I see the picture of him after?" The guy looks nothing like what I saw, but I was shown it so I could
Uh,
tell her, because to her, it sounded like a description of her brother. That's how she saw him. Like when I said a beard, he did have a beard. He was blonde though, and tall and lanky. But it was just that it was showing me a guy I know that has that same kind of Woodstock, classic rock, kind of like guitar playing, like rocker kind of guy, and he was, but he was of a different generation. So it was sort of like I'm not being shown exactly what her brother looked like. I'm just being shown characteristics that I think encompass those personality traits, and she was able to take everything. So
right.
that's interesting. So I would love to hear when you worked in circles, or the first time that you had to do the first few times you practiced reading somebody. Do you remember the moment, or any moment, where suddenly you were even shocked by something you got? And it could be anywhere along your journey, doesn't really matter, but one of those moments where you're like, "Oh my gosh, how did I know that?"
There's so many of
Yeah.
there's so many where you're just like, I have no idea where that came from. I have no idea how I pulled that out of the hat here.
Yeah.
I could not have done it. But I love the way you said that, because what you painted, the picture you painted, is like, I can paint this picture of what's going on in my mind. But as I'm speaking these words, you're going to create a different picture than I do because of your Rolodex, because of your history or what's going on in your mind. And that's how come mediumship works. It's because spirit can tell us, I can understand this thing, but as I speak it to you, you're going to do it from a memory or a feeling or a knowing. And that's how it works. And there's no way to even describe or explain how that happens, but we all have our own memories, our own experiences. And the interesting thing that a lot of people do when they go to a medium is they already have a preconceived idea of what they want to hear. And so sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't, because again, we're only going from our experience or what we're feeling that spirit is giving to us, which means that we work in the spiritual world the same we would work in this physical world. So I may walk into a room and feel like, oh, I'm not going to go to the left because there's something over there I don't like, right? Something I'm uncomfortable with, but I'm going to gravitate over to the right because I feel more comfortable over there. And that's the same with mediumship. If you're tapping into people's loved ones, there's certain people or personalities that you may not feel comfortable with because of something in your life, where there's other people that would be in that person's family or that person's the spiritual world, where you're going to feel more comfortable with because you can resonate with them. So it's really interesting how mediumship works. And even just again, it goes back to that doing your own inner work and understanding who you are. Because like for me, when I pull in people's fathers that were alcoholics or what were not present or may not have been the best kind of father, I'm going to miss certain things in there because I'm going to have triggers to what I grew up with. And so I'm going to pull out things that maybe weren't as important to them because I'm still working on in my own personal growth and through the healing through, because my father has passed and I've been working with him and we've been doing a lot of healing. And it's getting easier for me to do that. But my trigger is that. So I'm immediately going to kind of steer away from it because I'm uncomfortable with facing my demons or my past when it comes to that kind of relationship. So it's an interesting process how we work it. It really is. But I
Yeah.
do believe in whatever, when people come to you because people usually only come to a medium for specific reasons. So I do feel like even if I don't pull your father through because he was a tyrant, I guess you can say, um, there's still a way that I can get that message to you through another loved one, is what I'm trying to say. So you could have a grandfather, which I have a great relationship and love my grandfather. So I could go through a grandfather and still get that information. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? That kind of paradigm that we get into when we're dealing with the spiritual world, because they were human and they had their human experiences with us. And we're still human and we're still very much connected to the feelings of shame, hurt, pain, anger, frustration. We still have all those feelings. So that can get into the mix and cause issues sometimes.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed doing a lot of readings is sometimes I doubt myself because I see the same things over and over and over,
Yeah.
which I know is because they're using my frame of reference. But it
Mhm.
makes me feel like, am I just getting in a limited loop of what I can see? And it feels like, is every person I'm connecting with the same person? It almost feels, but I'm realizing that it's not. I'm getting yeses from my sitters, and I'm thinking, why am I always getting this person sitting in their armchair or this person watching like some game show and I'm like, am I just starting to stereotype
Mhm.
grandma or whatever? But it always turns out that it's because they're like, well, you got it last time, so I'm going to show it to you again. So it may not be the same exact scenario, but there's a similarity. Like for me, if someone was an alcoholic or had dementia, I tap into my physical. So I start to feel really dizzy in my mind. Like I feel like my head is spinning. And that's when I always say, okay, I feel there was either mental, and it's tough because I'm still learning to break them up. I'm like, either they were an alcoholic, they were bipolar, or they had dementia. There was some mind alteration here. And then I may say, okay, which one was it? And they may show me a beer I see a beer on a coaster a lot of the time,
Mhm.
just because they're like, well, that worked last time. And I keep thinking, gosh, I feel like I'm being so boxed in with what I'm seeing, but they're doing it because
Right.
they're getting results,
Right.
which is so interesting. And so for people who are like, oh, wait, I didn't know that I could become a medium. What do you mean by that? I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's funny in what you were saying. What I've been doing, I'm going to come back to that question, but I needed to
Yeah.
say because it's intriguing to me. What we think is what we create. I'm always talking about what you think you create, and we also do that in the world of spirit. So what I like to do now is I do this in practice. I wouldn't do this in a reading, an actual reading, but when I'm in practice. Like the other day, I realized, I always get grandparents, fathers, friends. I don't usually understand or connect with uncle or aunts. So I went into the reading with the intention of I would like to pull an uncle or an aunt. And sure enough, I pulled an uncle and an aunt because that was my challenge for the day. So I feel like for me, I'm constantly trying to expand my experience so that you can understand more about who that is or be able to tap into more like because we can always easily pull in the grandmas. I love pulling in grandmas, and
Yeah.
it's not that we don't, but we can always pull in a grandma or a grandfather. And depending on the person, you can pull in a parent in some ways, and friends are really easy to
Yeah.
pinpoint. Okay, this was a friend. So now I'm working at myself to pull out of that and try to get more different kind of relationships. But what I mean about becoming a medium is I feel like for me, it was something that I just it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't even something that I wanted to do. It wasn't even something that was in my intention to do. It's just not even on my radar. But there's some people that think that they can or want to, but they think that they can't. So I said that completely wrong. But there's some people that really have a desire to be a medium, but they feel like they can't be a medium. And that's a fallacy. It's like going to the gym. I'm a big gym person. And when you first go to the gym, you can't lift 100 pounds. You may start out with 10 pounds, but you absolutely can get to that 100 pounds. And the only way you can do it is one lift at a time, right? You get used to a 20-pound weight, then you're going to go to a 25-pound weight, and you're going to keep going incrementally up until you get to the 100 pounds. And it's the same thing with mediumship or doing psychic work. We all were born with it, but we don't use it, or we haven't been experiencing it, or we haven't been exposed to it. But all of us have the abilities. And I'm sure you've all experienced that where you go into a room and you feel like there's something off, or there's something happened, or a friend that you may not have talked to and you decide to call them. These are all forms of you connecting to either psychically to a person that's alive, or you think about like what happened to me just recently is because of all the practicing I'm doing, I use a lot of my family a lot, right? Because, people just bring through all these people. And I thought, oh, I haven't heard from this friend of mine that would have passed like 20 years ago. And so I started putting out into the energy that I would like this friend to come through. And sure enough, he did. He came through like a week after that. So all it is bringing your awareness to something. And so when you start thinking about maybe a family member or a loved one that you hadn't thought about for a long time, often that's that loved one that's coming through and saying, hey, I'm here. And you think about them. So that's using both the psychic and the mediumship abilities. So we all have it, we all use it. It's just that either your belief system that you were taught or that you believe in now, or the way that things are being taught in the world, or maybe the group of people that you're with think that you can't. It's just a matter of one, finding groups that you can be a part of, or a teacher or a mentor that you can trust, and just developing that muscle. That's all it is a muscle for you to develop and start trusting. Like, as you know, as we began our process, we doubted everything. We didn't believe that what we were saying could be true. Like when I still do it to this day, where if I'm getting something and it may be new, I will literally, and I know not to ask questions, but I'll literally like, you would understand that this would be your uncle, right? It's like we still, in fact, a very good and well-known teacher that I've worked with, who's been doing it for over 30 years, she was telling me just recently that she was doing a reading for a lady and she kept on hearing nut in her head. And now, mind you, this is somebody who's been doing it for over 30 years. Okay. She kind of knows what she's doing. She's an amazing medium. I've seen her work. I actually train with her and I absolutely love her. But she was like, I'm not saying nut. And so it went on for like, I don't know. She said it was like 10 or 20 minutes. She was like, no, I'm not saying nut. And right at the end, she said, okay, fine, I'm going to say nut. And it was the nugget that this woman wanted because her son had passed because he ate peanuts and he had an allergic reaction to it. And he ended up passing because of that allergic reaction. So that's somebody who's been in it for a long time and still doubted, because sometimes what we're hearing or feeling or sensing is so obscure or so random that we don't trust it. And that's, we're always, I feel like as we go through the journey, we're always going to be learning more and we're always going to be expanding more. And there's going to be times where we're not going to trust what we have. And it's just because we're humans. And that's, we're here to be that. We're here to experience life and not get it all right, and to doubt and to grow and to learn and become better at being a human. So I think that we're
Yeah,
always going to be questioning.
it's true. And it's always those little things that feel like absolutely nothing, where all of a sudden I may have talked about this already, so maybe that person who's told the story a million times, but I took Monica the Medium's class, and in it, we did a group reading for somebody who had lost their partner, and none of us were getting it. We were all trying to chime in at the same time. So I kind of was like, I don't think I can do this as a group. I'm just going to stop trying. And then when she said, okay, we've only got like a minute left, and this woman is very young. She lost her beautiful young fiance in a horrible accident. And then when I heard that, I'm like, I really want to give her something. And
Mhm.
I just closed my eyes real quick. I'm on the clock. I got to blurt it out. And I said, please show me something that'll make her smile. Like, and so I just blurted out, I said, "Slippers?" And I said, "I just saw slippers." And she goes, "Oh my God, he used to always wear his slippers to the bank, to class. Like and I was always like, could you put on some shoes?" It was like their joke. And all I saw was just a pair of slippers. And I'm like, I feel like I felt like I was anticipating her going, no, and me going, all right, very well then, and sitting back and going, ugh, why did I say anything? And it's just that silly fear of no, of hearing no, that holds me back. Like if I say this and it's wrong, then I'm going to feel like I'm off track, and then they're going to think I'm they're going to lose faith in me. And it's just so natural to get into that weird, loop of self-doubt.
And that's an important thing because I think people think as mediums, you're going to do everything right.
Right.
But we're people too. And again, we're going from our experience of understanding what the spirit is telling us. So I've had that quite often where I will get a hit to something and I'll say it in a way that I'm seeing it or feeling it, but it's not quite right from my awareness. And so I'll go, okay, so it takes me a minute to go, okay, let's unpack that and figure out what it really is, which I'm doing in my head. I'm not, doing the process verbally. And then you're able to get onto what it actually is. So just because a medium says something to you that's off, it's because that interpretation to themselves wasn't clear. And then if a good medium is really aware of what's happening, then you go back. It's not that you do the same thing over again, but you look at it from a different angle or a different perspective. And that's where you can go, oh, okay, now I understand. Like I just had that yesterday where I was reading somebody and it was something about the way that that person had passed. And I wasn't, I mean, you kind of feel too, right? When it's like, oh, I'm not really sure if this is right or not. And so I said what I said, and she said no. And as soon as I said it, though, that's when my awareness came back to what the truth actually was. And that happens quite often. So I said it, she said no, and then I was able to give her what the actual situation was, and then she could understand what I said. So just to think
Right.
that we're doing mediumship and we're always going to do it right. I mean, there are a lot you do. If you go to a medium, you have to be careful that you know this person, you vetted them and made sure that they're ethical and they're legitimate, because there are a lot of mediums that when they book a client, they're going to do the history on you and find out anything that they can. But you, as a sitter, should be able to feel that that's happening. If you do not feel your loved one as you're sitting there with a medium, because that's the whole point of mediumship. It's not just to do a show and to regurgitate this information. It's about connecting you back to your loved one and feeling that connection. So if you're not feeling that, then you need to ask questions about why.
Yeah, and in fact, that is why we say to our sitters, please don't tell me anything. Just say yes, no, or I don't know, unless I'm ready for you to do the big reveal so that I can put it all together. And often I'll wait till the very end. I'll say, just say yes, no, or I don't know. First of all, for me, it takes the fun out of it. From like seeing if, because then I'm really going to doubt myself. But
Uh-huh.
as human beings, what we do is if you give us that little nugget of, oh, yeah, my aunt, well, she died of cancer. She actually smoked and she used to live on a horse farm or something. Then all of a sudden you've got in your mind this character, this like sassy, smoking, horse riding lady. And it's so easy to be like, was her name, like
Yeah.
Stella or something, and then you've got this whole character that you've created, and it's easy to then stereotype and say, oh, I'll bet she wore those jeans with the rhinestones, and oh, I'll bet she liked to line dance. And you might be right, but that's a stereotype. It's not actually a connection. Um, and so you do have to be careful. I
Mhm.
don't want anything that's going to skew
Right.
my perceptions or give me too much information about them. I mean, it's already so easy as a human to do that.
And I think, we understand because I've been in the seat and I've been the medium. So I've been in both seats, right? And I know when you're getting a reading from someone about someone who you really loved and you really miss, you get excited and you want to
Yeah.
share in this experience. But I've had several situations where I've had a really good piece of information because a medium a lot of times will get like snippets of something. It's not just one word. You'll get like a paragraph or a picture or so, and you're filling it in. So we call that layering. So I'm not going to say the whole thing. I'm going to say, because we also work off of your voice and it helps us to hear that kind of interaction between the sitter and the medium. And so we kind of layer that. So there was one situation where I had this whole thing going on. And as soon as I said the first bit of it, the sitter just told me the whole story. And I'm like, now I can't tell you that because you already
Yeah.
told me that. So it really does take from you, your experience when you do that, of really understanding and feeling that loved one is working through that medium to you. But I do have to say with that, just like anybody can be a medium, anybody also can connect with their loved ones themselves. All you have to do is be in a quiet place where you're not being distracted and think of that person. And as soon as you think of that person, like I said a little while ago, you're going to connect to your loved one and just listen to what they have to say to you. And like us, right, as we're learning, you're going to probably doubt or think I'm making that up or that's my own voice. But the more that you do that with trust, the more that you're going to know when it's you that's whatever, saying whatever, or coming up with whatever conclusion, or it's the loved one that's actually communicating with you. So everybody can actually connect with their loved ones on their own as well.
Right, which leads me to my next question, which you actually partially just answered. But for those people who are interested in learning mediumship, or even just, as we've said, not everyone who is interested in this is meant to actually do mediumship for a living, but there's value in learning the skill of connecting with the other side, with our loved ones in spirit, with your spirit guides, angels, if you believe in that. I didn't used to, and I 100% do now. Um, what types of things can we do? Obviously, I would say take study with people, but just what will they learn in an environment like that? And what kinds of things can they do in their daily lives, or just consistently in their lives, to learn to connect with spirit?
Well, I think to start, whether you want to do it professionally or not, or if you just want to do it for family and friends or just for yourself, sitting in the power is the number one thing to do, and doing that on a regular basis. And that all that is about sitting in the quiet and listening to your breath, just paying attention to your breath. And as all of us know, meditation is like a hot topic for a lot of people because they're just like, I can't do it. I can't quiet my mind. But that's a part of your journey, is to learning how to quiet your mind. All of us will never quiet our mind. Our mind is never going to become silent because we're human beings that have a mind that's supposed to be keeping us safe and helping us through life. So it's a fallacy that you're ever going to completely stop your mind from doing anything. But when you're sitting in that power where you're breathing and you're just paying attention to your natural breath, you're focusing on your breath. So when thoughts come into your mind, then you dismiss them. You don't hold on to them. You don't start like making your whole grocery list out. You just allow that, okay, I'm going to make my grocery list when I'm done. Go on. Just let it flow through you. And then after you've done that and you've gotten better at just sitting and listening to your breath and being in the quiet with yourself, that's when you start connecting to your higher self. Your higher self is your soul. It's the part of you that already has all the answers, who already knows exactly what you're here to do, has your blueprint, helps you through your life. But we've forgotten to connect with that part of us. So we feel like we're just a human being and we're going through life. But from my experience in my working with my soul self and connecting the two of us, then that's how I've been able to grow more and become more at peace and have better understanding, and the door to connecting with spirit. So those are two really important things to start with, whether you go on to having a mentor or not. Sitting in the power regularly, getting to know who you are and how you think or how you react to something, is vital to being a medium, whether it's just on your own or not. It also brings you peace in your life and clarity. And I've always believed that we had angels, or I know I really wasn't sure about the guide thing,
Yeah.
but I did believe in angels that would help us. And I did believe always that our loved ones, they just went to heaven. But when I connected to my higher self, what I started doing was connecting to what I call my spiritual team. And it's a bunch of different entities that work with me, whether it be loved ones or angels or guides, or, even animals can be your guides and helpers. So I start connecting to my team. And once I started connecting my team, then that's helped me even to navigate this world or make better decisions or be more in tune with what's going on around me, and being in nature and connecting with nature, because that connects you to the one. Because in my belief system, we're all one, as we hear a lot. And yet each one of us are individual. So how do you connect with the one and still stay who you are individually? So for me, that took a lot of time and a lot of work. And it's not something that I did overnight. It was something that I had to do on a regular basis and repetitively. And some days you wake up and you're like, not in my mood, not going to happen today. And that's okay, because again, we have to give ourselves a lot of compassion and love, because we are human and we're here to be human. So we have to give ourselves those breaks when things don't always work the way we want to, or we're not in the mood to. But then we have to ask ourselves why. So it's really getting to know yourself. And then after that, you can sit with spirit and just start feeling like the I think the biggest part of sitting in the power is feeling how spirit comes to you. And so what I like to do is I allow spirit to come and really blend with me. And then once I feel that and I'm sure of what's going on and I can feel my whole body and what's happening in the energy around me, then I'll ask spirit to step away. And then you can feel how it goes out and then it comes back in. And so I'm constantly like feeling the change. Or when I am doing readings, I'm very much aware of where is spirit coming towards me, or how is spirit blending with me? Where is that coming from? And then I can get a better sense sometimes of who's coming just by how that spirit is connecting with me. So that's the beginning. And then finding a teacher or a mentor, I advise, is really important, and one that you resonate with. Don't just pick your friend's favorite person or somebody who you think is really good. You have to do YouTube videos of them and listen to the way that they do their readings or their teaching. Like you mentioned, Charlie, he does a lot of YouTube videos, and Charlie Kelly is not for everybody. And there's some people that absolutely love Charlie Kelly. And there's other, like I studied with Colin Bates, who is the most heartwarming, loving person. And he and I were like kindred spirits, because he got where I was coming from, where another one of my mentors was Andy Being. And I love both of them. I'm not saying one was better than the other, but Andy Being then helped me when it came to my mental mind, because he's a lot more analytical and he's a lot more like, I became evidential because I very much like literal things than, analytical things. So he really helped me when it came to that. And I actually worked with the two of them together and in the same time period, because they balanced me out in, what I would really gravitate to. Where if I would have just stayed with Colin by myself or by himself, then I would have been a lot more into the more woo woo, heartfelt, which isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with that. I just knew for me, I needed the balance between the two. So you really have to make sure that you're comfortable with that mentor and that you can resonate with that mentor and that you're free to be able to express what it is that you're going through. Because as you go through that journey, you're going to have so many roadblocks in your own way as you face yourself. And as you start expanding when it comes to communicating with spirit, because you are going to have those times where, like you were talking about, where you're going to doubt yourself, or you're going to question what you're doing, or you're going to think I can't even tell you how many times I quit because you've done a horrible reading and you're like, I'm never going to get this. You're just like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I have a friend who hears me all the time. She goes, okay, well, talk to me tomorrow, and I always get back up and start again. So for me, I would say that would be a beginning journey, is to really get to know yourself and sit with yourself and make sure that you're comfortable with it. And that's something you want to do.
That is perfect. That's really great advice. I would also add that you can find sitting in the power guided meditations if you're having trouble doing it on your own. I listen to a 10-minute if I don't have time.
Mhm,
Tony Stockwell has a great sitting in the power meditation. It's only 10 minutes
mhm,
and it's just about imagining a light coming out from your chest. The light expands, then the light from the universal light comes and joins with yours, and you just sit and be held in that light for 10, whatever it is, 8 minutes or something. And it can, so if you have trouble
yeah.
listening to your breath, because I've been trying that and then I start to think about something else. I'm like, breathe, breathe. Oh gosh, what do I have to do tomorrow? And that's also a good exercise to do though.
Yes.
So I mean, because I think you should keep pushing yourself to keep trying and keep trying. And also what you said about prepping yourself is really the most important part. The rest is trusting what you're feeling, hearing, sensing. So in, for example, Monica the Medium's class, I chose her because I had watched her reality show and I just really liked her a lot and thought, oh, she's someone I would be friends with. I can really relate with her. And what I loved was that for the first few weeks, it's all prep. She doesn't throw you to the wolves immediately. She's like, you have to get yourself prepared first.
Yeah.
So she'll have you, she and her class is very thorough. I mean, she gives you a lot of stuff to do, but a lot of it is walk in nature, don't
Hmm.
watch TV for a month, eat healthy, get sleep. It's really self-care, meditation, cleansing your just getting rid of anything that doesn't serve you. And then towards the end, and I thought, oh, well, I didn't think this, but you might think, oh, but I'm not going to have as much work time. Well, I'm telling you, by week 4, I was doing readings that
Yeah.
I was getting, and I hadn't before. I had been practicing readings,
Mhm.
and I was still kind of hit or miss and feeling like I was guessing and not really sure. And by week 4, when she said, "All right, let's go." Um, I wasn't as great at the photo readings, but once we got into reading other people, I started to get stronger and stronger. And then by week 6, I was like, I'm doing it. It felt like someone had just taken the training wheels off and just sent me on my way. So I think that's wonderful advice. The rest is just listening.
Mhm.
And I also loved what you said about, I always forget to do this, practicing come in closer. What does that feel like? Now
Mhm.
go away. Now, what does that feel like? Because the energy shifts are so subtle. So
Mhm.
really a lot of the work is learning to feel when you're right versus when you're wrong.
Mhm.
It's like, wait, this might be my own thought. And how do I know? Because there's just this little difference in the way it feels.
Mhm.
It came in a different way. And I can't even put it into words, but I'm starting to get better at being like, I do think that's my own thought. I
Mhm.
do think I'm interpreting and paying attention to your physical sensations as well, because I get Monica said she gets it too, spirit tingles,
Mhm.
but I don't get them all the time. So
Yeah.
you can't always be reliant on the physical symptoms. They help me a lot. When I'm in it and spirit's like, yes, 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 I start to get full body electric tingles. And I'm like, all right, now I'm really going. But not everyone will get that. So
Yeah.
it's about learning what your body feels like.
Exactly.
Which I love that you said.
And I really love that you talked about some kind of voice or music kind of meditation. I know for say you forget, right? When you
Yeah,
started. But when I first started, I had that same problem where I couldn't quiet my mind down. It's very common, especially in our fast world of, all the different electronics that we're a
yeah,
part of every day. And there were certain days, at first, I only listened to some kind of voice type thing, either a guided meditation or music or something to keep my mind busy. But then I would start weeding it out more and more. Like I started feeling about, well, what do I feel like today? And so there were time periods where I would just listen to music, or I would just listen to a guided meditation, or I would sit in the quiet. But ultimately, what you want to get to is sitting in the quiet to be able to be a good reader and to be able to, because if you rely on the sound or the external stimulation, then you're still shutting senses off. But when you
yes.
sit in the quiet, then you're igniting all of your senses. And when you do a reading, you're doing it from all of your senses. And they do say that mediumship is the reading of feeling, because what we're feeling is what we really do read from. All the other senses come in after that, but we usually will have a feeling first.
Right. That's really, and it's funny because I actually started to feel anxiety when you said that, just because I'm like, I know I have to do that. When I do a reading, I listen to this
Mhm.
video on YouTube called Open Your Third Eye Immediately. And it's a 5-minute video with the minute I hear the um, it's like a little cymbal
Mhm.
clang, I automatically start getting spirit tingles because spirit knows I'm ready to work. I know I'm ready to work.
Mhm.
And hearing that music for me instantly puts me in the zone. And that doesn't mean it's wrong to use it, but I think there is that it feels a little uncomfortable to say, what if I just don't rely on anything external and I just fully trust my own self? And it feels like being naked. Like,
Yeah.
okay, to
I
get to this
remember when I first started, I would notice that people would have like things they would do with their hands. I don't know if you've noticed that, but watch mediums.
Mm,
Sometimes they'll do like some kind of gesture of some sort.
yeah,
And then there was some mediums that would have like a stone or something that they would have in their pocket, or it was like a good luck charm. And I remember I saw John Edwards one time, and he said he had a stone in his pocket that he would always have to have when he would do a reading. And at one point in time, he went somewhere and he didn't have a stone, and he was like, I can't do the reading. And so that taught me right there to never rely on something. I
yeah.
have to be able to know that I've developed this relationship with the spiritual world, and that's where it's gonna come from. It's, because we do get used to these. I mean, we all have rituals in so many different ways that we do, and we feel like we're, like you said, naked or incapable if we don't have that ritual. We all have them in all different aspects of our life. But I think for me, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, it was just my choice when I started to not rely on something because I didn't want to have to rely on something, if that makes sense.
Well, it's true of anything. I think it's true of anything in this life. And finding our spirituality is learning to let go of physical things we have to grasp onto, whether it's validation from somebody else or whether it's a talisman, something we hold on to. Our
Right.
whole lives are about finding that center, I think. I mean, the reason we're here is to learn how to stay steadfast and anchor ourselves no matter what's going on around us, no matter what anyone else says, does, or feels.
Mhm.
I know my personal biggest challenge is staying steadfast and firm
Mhm.
in myself and not being affected by anything happening outside of myself. And so I think it's a good practice anyway
Mhm.
for our lives.
When I started my journey, again, I'm coming out of this whole belief system of Christianity. And so I don't remember where I went to a trade show one time, and there was a lady there that I met who we're still friends to this day. And she had this jewelry that she had energized and did all this stuff to. And at that point, it's like, I didn't even know if I believed in it or not. But I got it because it was my talisman to remember that I am connected to the God source, whether I have to go to church every Sunday or whether I do my baptisms or whether I do my sign of the cross or take the communion. And I'm not saying that any of that's wrong, but for me, it was my reminder that I always have that connection to God. I always have that connection to source. I don't have to have rituals to have that connection. And that was the beginning of me realizing that I have more power than I actually thought I had. So I believe that talismans in the beginning are very important. And even when people would say, "Why are you wearing that necklace?" Because people judged what I was wearing. And I said, because it's my reminder, it's my talisman, because a lot of them were religious people when I was coming out of a religion. And I just said, it's my reminder, it's my talisman to know where I'm going and what I want to achieve. And people are like, okay, cool, man, I get that. So it didn't become a religious thing at that point. So I think that we do need to have those things to remind us of where we're going or what we're doing, and to not feel bad about that either.
Yeah, having a touchstone is not a bad idea. I actually have a cluster of bracelets that are psychic, it's psychic intuition. And I mean, I spent some money on that beautiful bracelet and I wear it a lot, not because I think I don't have powers without it. It's just a symbol of my connection with spirit. In
Right.
fact, I'm not wearing it right now, but I often put it on before my readings.
Uh-huh.
However, I'm not reliant, but I think it just makes me feel connected in some sort of way. But yeah, you don't want to become reliant, just like I don't want to become reliant on the spirit tingles. I know when I'm about to do a reading when it's going to go really well, and it's because I'm feeling like I'm in a shower of electricity going down my leg and through my brain. And I
Mhm.
say, "You've got a lot of people here," and they're like, "Yep, I do." And I automatically am like, "I know we're locked in."
Yeah.
If I don't feel it, it does often mean sometimes they just didn't know a lot of people in spirit or they can't validate much. And I had that this week where I read a classmate of mine and it just was like fallen flat. And I'm like, I just am not getting a lot. And afterwards, I'm like, do you not know a lot of people in spirit? He's like, well, just my grandparents, but I didn't know them that well, and some coworkers. And I'm like, oh, okay, phew, because I'm like, I was getting something, but he didn't know any, there just wasn't much there. And his grandparents were pretty straight-laced, quiet people, and there really wasn't much to say. And it would just, I started to doubt myself, but I also wasn't feeling that rush of energy I get. And I started to be like, I just don't have it. I'm just kind of like, I don't have much. Like, I have the Navy, I have possible dementia, and I have
Yeah.
a stroke with heart attack. And he's like, yes to those things, but I had no feeling
Yeah.
behind it. So it is important to not rely on those external things, and know that sometimes if you're not getting much, there's a reason that
Right.
doesn't have to do with you.
Mhm. It hardly, we make it us sometimes, but it never has anything to do with us. Everything we feel, hear, sense, are aware of, anything, it's always symbolic to something if we just take the time to figure it out, unless we're gone mental. And then when you're mental, you can always tell when a medium is mental just by their body language, how they're using their words, what they're actually pulling through. Then they're mental. But yeah, everything that happens when you're doing a reading, everything has some significance. Whether you see, I've done readings off the sky, I've done readings from birds, trees, flowers. I mean, I do orographs, that's from art. You can read from anything if you're connected to spirit, because everything will talk to you.
Yeah, and just for those who don't know what you mean by mental, can you explain what that is?
Good. Somebody asked me that the other day.
Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to Eileen Davies one day and she goes, I don't understand these Americans that use the word mental. But mental is when you're using your logical mind when you're doing a reading versus actually reading through the spirit, actually just allowing the information to come through. And what happens when we're doing readings is that our brain waves will drop into different rams. And when we're thinking we're in a higher ram, we're logically thinking about what we have to do or whatever in the day. As we're doing psychic work, we drop down. As we doing mediumship, we go farther. As you do trance, you're down lower, and then you're into the sleep zone. So there's that level of um, the range that we go in our mental consciousness. So when we're mental, we're definitely using what's logical or in our mental mind to come up with an answer to something, which
That's a
usually
yeah.
people will look up, like, I'm thinking about this. Or when you're doing a mediumship reading and you're really tapping into spirit, some people do though. So that's not an overall, like
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm really uncertain about something, then I will look up to my left because spirit comes to my left. But when I'm really confident about what I'm doing, then I will actually just look at the person straight on. So there's different ways that mediums will work. But when I think, see, I just did it. When I'm going
Mhm.
to go into my mental mind, I'll look to my right. And if I'm going into the
Right.
spiritual world, I'll look to my left.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that do a little bit of looking, but I mainly look down with my eyes. I look to my lower left,
Uh-huh.
um, and I tend to close my eyes. And then for a while, I thought I have to learn not to do that, and saw that other mediums do it too. And I'm like, obviously, I wouldn't do that in platform,
Right.
where I'm reading an audience, but it just for some reason
Excuse me.
I tend to kind of do this, like I'm kind of feeling in the dark because I want to tune out any external. I don't want to look at you and get any kind of judgments about what you look like, I'm like, "Oh, she looks like someone I knew who."
Yeah.
I do like to connect personally, just because it helps me feel more connected, but I don't necessarily want to kind of look at your surroundings and see what type of dress you are or even what ethnicity
You
you
can
are.
get information from that. I love
Yes.
doing that. Now I love doing that. But you're right. When you close your eyes, your senses become more intense. So you actually can connect to spirit, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
I used to do it all the time. Or when I'm really having an issue, I'll close my eyes. But your senses become more intense when we close our eyes because we are taking all of the external energies and distractions out of the way. But I love, like the other day, I was doing a reading for a lady and I was pulling her friend through, and she was wearing a cap on her head. And I'm bringing her friend through. I was getting all this information about what he did and was talking to her about the kind of personality he had. And I looked up and I saw her hat, and immediately I knew her friend would always wear this cap, and he would wear earphones like you're wearing over the cap onto his ear. She goes, absolutely. And I
Wow.
got that just by looking at her hat. And her friend was like, see that? That's what I wore.
Right. It's amazing.
Isn't it?
Um, yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think that even though we are newer to the game, I think that we actually I think that you specifically too have a lot of knowledge because you are in that phase where you do remember. I mean, someone who's been doing this 10 years might be like, "Oh wait, how did I do I don't know how I learned. I just took some classes and I don't know, it's been 10 years." But I think it's important to see that you
Yeah.
and I are just lay people, not on our radar, living our lives, and suddenly we get the tap on the shoulder that this is something we want to be doing, and that it's like anything else. It takes faith,
Mhm.
belief, the desire to do it, and it takes a huge leap of faith,
It
but
does.
it's also so exciting
Yeah.
as you see it unfold. You're like, oh my gosh, this gives me a new sense of understanding that this is not, even though it seems so crazy, this is not all there is. There is so much more going on.
Mhm.
And I've said this 1,000 times. That's an exaggeration, but that's why I called this channel Magic is Real, because this is stuff we think of as paranormal. It
Mhm.
isn't, there's nothing, it's not paranormal, it's normal, but we just don't see it. We just can't see it as clearly. And so I think that there's this fallacy that
Mhm.
this stuff is, we use the term woo woo all the time. It's just because we can't see it with our naked eye and we don't even realize we're seeing it. One thing to understand when you're being communicated with, like you said, you sit still and what your thoughts come in is you have to know that you have to get out of your own way and know that it's not just you, but also look out for those signs. Like lately, I've just been seeing repeating numbers over and over. And I used to just go, oh, how cool. Now I said, I know, angels, I know what you're telling me. I know, I know. And it's like every time I'm like, I know, I know, I know. And I keep saying 11, 11, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. Now
Mhm.
it's 4. And of course it's 444. Oh,
Mhm.
yep, it's 911 again because 911 is my number. And there are things that they leave you, like keep seeing feathers, not just by a bird's nest, but on the stairs. How did that get in here?
Mhm.
And so it's also about just becoming aware that you're being communicated with by spirit, and things that you think are just, oh, I have this song in my head suddenly.
Right.
You might have it just in your head suddenly, but now I stop and go, what are the lyrics?
Yep.
Is there something significant? And then you start to see synchronicity everywhere. And then everything is a synchronicity, not literally, not everything is a sign, but a lot of things we don't even realize are signs are signs. And people say, one of my friends is like, but why is my mom not communicating with me? I'm like,
Oh,
honey, she is.
yes.
It's just she's not gonna shout in your ear. You're gonna have to kinda meet her where she is on that energy level. And you have to trust, you have to believe that and I know you're scared to believe because you're afraid of being, um, hurt, because you think, "What if I'm just being delusional?" And you wanna believe it so bad that you're afraid to actually believe in it. And a lot of it is just know that your loved ones are always communicating with you. You just have to be willing to think outside the box and see.
Mhm.
What would you say to that as sort of a parting message as well?
Well, I agree with you. Our loved ones are always communicating with us. They're always with us. They're always helping us. And it's about learning about how to hear it, because we're the one, they're not talking to us, we're not listening. And so how do we start listening? And that's again, it's going back to sitting in the quiet and hearing that, because you're right, and we've talked about this several times about how we don't trust it. We think it's our own voice, or we think it's something we're making up. But it's allowing that, because the one thing that I learned is I started having yes days, and that's yes to spirit, because we are taught not to have yes days because we doubt it. We think we're making it up. We can't really be hearing this. But when you just have a day where it's like, I'm just going to do whatever spirit tells me to do, or I'm going to answer to anything spirit says. That's when you start realizing what's your voice and what's spirit's voice, because you start seeing, oh, because they're not going to tell you to go jump off a roof or do something that would be stupid. They're helping you and guiding you through your life. So if you listen and just say, okay, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do today. This is a yes day. And then that's when you start realizing, oh, that sounds like this, or I sound like this. And that's when you start realizing who's speaking to you and when they are speaking to you, because they're always there. They're always there to guide you and help you. I mean, even to the point you hear all the time about, turn here instead of going the direction you're going, or do this right now. I can't tell you how many times, oh my God, it's through pain that I've learned every time you hear that, do this, or don't forget that, or go get that now, or you're going to forget it. And I don't. And then I'm like, dang, I should have listened. So it's a learning process for us. I really want to point that out, that we're very much hard on ourselves. And if you can be compassionate and loving for yourself, remembering you're a human being that's here to mess things up. We're not supposed to have a perfect life. That's our experience, is to mess things up and learn from it. So as you're learning something new, for me, I've always been very hard on myself, but now I'm a lot more compassionate on myself, because it's something that you're learning and it's something that you're changing. So you just have to learn to take one day at a time. Another day's a brand new day to start a brand new thing. You start over again, or you redo what you did. It's up to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be compassionate and kind to yourself.
That's beautiful. Joanne, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I think you provided so much insight and wisdom that I think will be really helpful and interesting to people who don't realize that this is already in them. I think it's really, I hope that I think I see more and more people waking up to the fact that they are spiritual beings and that we do have more power than we think. And I don't mean that from a power standpoint that's like, I can beat down other people. It's just owning our own power. And I think we have so much more than we really know.
Right.
And I think this will provide a lot of inspiration to people. So if you can just tell us what the name of your website, anything you want to plug or share here, and I will provide a link to your show as well below. Just let us know where we can find you.
Well, I am on YouTube and Facebook with a live weekly show that I do, which again, I spoke about, and it's called Reach the Unlimited. I also do mediumship. Well, I do readings for people based on your need. I don't really, you can specify what you want to do, but I do readings. My website is also reachtheunlimited.com. And my email address is Joanne at reachtheunlimited.com. So I have branded it across the board.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Joanne. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It has been really fun. And I hope that it really does touch people and help people, and not be afraid of, you know, testing it out, seeing if it works for you, and developing your relationship with spirit.
I know that it will. All right. Have a great day. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.